Hi everyone. I want to say a few things on behalf of myself, James, and Glyn about navigating the next few steps out of lockdown as a church. You probably heard the news that the government is planning to remove COVID legal restrictions in England from the 19th of July onwards. As you may know, this decision has been taken in spite of rising numbers of cases of COVID, where new infections could reach 100,000 a day by the end of July. And the government acknowledges that lifting all restrictions is a gamble, but they say that now is the moment to act, even if contingency plans have to be made for the autumn. Whatever we think of the government's decision, it will make all sorts of difference to our lives going forwards, to our weekly shopping, to our summer holidays, to our social gatherings. And it'll also make a difference to our life as a church. As you will know, we've sought to follow the regulations and guidance as a church. We've been meeting in the building as and when we've been allowed to do so. We've been updating our risk assessments regularly. We've been doing track and trace, practicing social distancing, wearing face coverings, resisting the urge, most of us anyway, to sing behind our face coverings. We follow the guidelines when it comes to giving out bread and wine at our breaking of bread services, and when it comes to serving teas and coffees. So our hope and plan going forward is to continue to move in line with the government guidelines on the lessening of restrictions. This means, all being well, that those who want to do so will be able to gather in the church building on the 25th of July in something like the way we used to do so before lockdown. And we'll plan to do so on that day as a whole church family, children and adults alike. A full return to the building will no doubt delight some of us for all sorts of reasons, and make others of us feel a bit nervous again for all sorts of reasons. But I want to say a few things that I hope will help steer us through this next stage together as a whole church family. First of all, that it is the next stage. We've been saying for a while that it's very unlikely that one day a switch will be flipped and everything will suddenly revert back to normal. What we've had is a series of smaller steps along the way. And the 25th of July will bring a significant step forward. But it'll be the start of a process of a full return to the building, not the end of that process. So I'd encourage us to be patient. The removal of legal restraints on the 19th of July opens the door to a return to normality, but it's probably wise to recognise that it will take some time for a proper return to normal. We'll be seeing if there's a good time in the autumn to mark a proper coming back together as a church family, but the 25th of July won't be it, significant though it is. The second thing to say is that we'll still need to be cautious. It looks as if the government's announcement means ripping up guidance on face coverings, social distancing and singing bans, but that isn't quite the case. Some of those measures will still have a part to play in society generally, as well as in church. The difference is that there won't be specific regulations in place and we won't have the police turning up to arrest us, but we still need to be cautious. For instance, many of us are really looking forward to singing again as a congregation, but there may well be guidance on singing. This is currently the case in Wales and Scotland, where singing is allowed but in a well-ventilated room and with people wearing face coverings, and when cases of COVID in the local area are low. At the moment, we're actually in the dark as to what guidance, if any, will be in place for singing in church services on the 25th of July. There's a government meeting with faith leaders on the afternoon of the 19th of July, and we're unlikely to get much clarity before then. Likewise, when it comes to face coverings, whilst the wearing of face coverings indoors will no longer be required by law, there may well be some guidance advising the wearing of face coverings in enclosed spaces, including in church. We also have to recognise that some in our own congregation may not be comfortable returning to the building without wearing face coverings. And that brings us to the third thing to say, which is that we need to be sensitive to each other at this time. Some of us may stay away from the building for reasons of age or health. That makes good sense and it's fully understood. Some of us will be nervous about coming back to the church building for all sorts of reasons. And so we'll continue to use Zoom for those who aren't yet ready to return to in-person services. But for those of us who are ready to return, we have to recognise that there'll be some differences of opinion among members of our congregation on what measures, if any, should continue to be adopted. Some of us may not want to return until all restrictions are lifted. Others of us may be fearful of coming back if all restrictions are lifted. Some of us will want to hug everyone in sight. Others of us, well, you know who you are. But the nature of belonging to a body of people means that these sorts of issues aren't easily resolved. There were times in the New Testament when churches had to recognise legitimate differences of opinion between each other on sensitive issues. And the key always was not to impose our views on others and to preserve the unity of the church. It's important that we exercise loving care for one another and not judge those who take a different view or have a different sensitivity. We're going to need to be gracious and understanding towards those who choose to exercise their freedom in a different way. So as elders, we'll continue to try to take account of our own situation, and we'd be really grateful for your support in prayer as we do so. For churches across the board, actually, the best wisdom seems to be that the autumn period will be a time for proper regathering and readjustment, which shouldn't come as a surprise after such an extended period of abnormality. So, three things. Let's be patient, let's be cautious, and let's be sensitive. Thank you for listening. Please do get in touch if you want to and share any thoughts or concerns or ideas that you have. And let's continue to trust in the Lord to lead us forward.